welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sabrina with the blog Health at Home. Welcome to my kitchen. We are harvesting produce right from the garden to use in 3 separate dinner recipes for the week. Beginning with a roasted tomato sauce that we'll be using in our second dinner recipe. I want to encourage you in making this sauce that you don't need to use solely paste tomatoes. If you're swimming in sliced grape or cherry tomatoes, you can use those here. In fact, I'm using a majority of non-paste tomatoes here because a church member generously shared portions of their garden harvest with us. The recipe for this sauce is a very hands-off recipe that uses many tomatoes in one fell swoop. So if those fruit flies are starting to settle in because you haven't had time to process all of your tomatoes, try this recipe that doesn't require boiling off any liquid from the sauce or putting the sauce through a filter either. I have 2 glass casserole dishes here that I'm filling up with an assortment of tomatoes. I think I have slicers, grape, and a handful of paste tomatoes. While cutting the tomatoes, I'm trying to keep them around the same thickness so that they'll roast evenly, and I won't accidentally char the little ones to fully cook the bigger slices. Also, use a serrated knife to cut tomatoes without them squishing all over the place. Once I've placed in the tomato, I'm adding a large onion divided between the 2 dishes. Here I'm showing you an example of blossom end rot. You commonly see a larger dark brown spot on the bottom of the tomato, but while this paste tomato didn't have that noticeable rotting spot, it has a dimple in the bottom of it instead. Once I cut into the tomato, you'll see the dark rotting spot on the interior of the tomato. And here's a close-up of what I'm talking about. I think that this blossom end rot is most commonly caused by lack of water. So when it's really, really hot out in the summer, make sure that you're watering your tomatoes. Now you can add olive oil or salt and pepper here, or even a head of garlic, but I just kept it simple and left everything plain. I prefer to season the sauce when I use it for pastas or pizza. Roast these at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. I couldn't get to this next step right away, so my dishes just stayed in the oven while it cooled. When I had time to blend the roasted mixture, I removed it from the dishes with a slotted spoon so that as much liquid could drain as possible before blending. This ensures that I don't have to spend hours boiling off this pasta sauce over the stove. Then blend or food process the tomatoes and onions until the tomato skins and seeds are pulverized into the sauce. That way that we don't have to filter it out either. This batch made a little over a quart of sauce that I stored in the refrigerator to use before the week is through. Since the cutting board and knives are already out, I'm quickly throwing together a simple fresh veggie side. All you need is a cucumber, tomatoes, and a shallot, but regular onion or green onions work here too. After peeling the cucumber, I'm slicing, then quartering the pieces. I'm also quartering the grape tomatoes. Then I'm thinly slicing a shallot. You can add your preferred vinegar and oil here with salt and pepper and even some fresh herbs. Give everything a good stir. I decided to add a little bit more cucumber here because the tomato ratio seemed a little overpowering. And there you have an easy, fresh salad that you can quickly pull out of the fridge for lunches and dinners or even a quick snack. Moving back into our summer dinners from the garden, we are working on hamburger steaks. But first, I'm thinly slicing some zucchini. I imagine you could do this with yellow squash as well. My grandmother came to visit a few weeks ago, and I served some sauteed zucchini for a dinner while she was here. She shared a way her mother, my Bubba, prepared zucchini. After slicing them thinly, she coated them in a flour mixture and then browned them in a little oil. So that is what I'm trying here for the first time. For our hamburger steaks, I'm using 1 pound of ground beef and forming that into 5 different patties. My sister-in-law shares with me so many homemaking hacks, and her latest one is dimpling hamburger patties in the middle to mitigate their tendency to puff in the centers. Doing this helps to get an evenly thick burger patty. I'm calling these hamburger steaks because I'm using the timing and aromatics my brother used when he taught me how to cook an actual steak. I'm trying to replicate those flavors, so we're using butter, shallot, garlic, and thyme. My brother also uses rosemary, but I neglected those seedlings and they didn't survive in the garden. After salt and peppering the burger patties, I'm tossing an entire bag of baby potatoes into the oven at 425 Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes. This is such an easy side that mimics baked potatoes without the long wait and aluminum foil. If I'm making a more involved main dish, I prefer to simplify my sides so I'm not stressing over multiple steps in different recipes. So these potatoes are a great option for those dinners. I simply sprinkle the potatoes with oil and I'll add salt once they're taken out of the oven. For the flour mixture we're dipping our zucchini into, I'm adding 1 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of garlic and onion powder, paprika and salt, and some fresh cracked pepper. To my cast iron pan on medium-high heat, I'm placing the hamburger patties after a pat of butter. I'm also using butter to fry up the floured zucchini in a separate cast iron. The zucchini pan is also over medium-high heat, and I'll flip the zucchini once the side has browned. When the burger patties have an internal temperature between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm flipping and flattening them, and then adding the aromatics into the oils in the pan. As they cook down, I baste the hamburgers with them so that the meat absorbs the flavor. These will be a great addition to top the burgers or the potatoes when serving. And here is the complete dinner. For our next dinner, I'm using an enamel cast iron since we'll be cooking with that roasted tomato sauce we made earlier. I'm actually making this pasta for lunch, but spaghetti is also a staple dinner, so it made it into this video. After getting some water to boil on the stove, I'm taking previously ground and seasoned beef out of the freezer. Since this is coming straight from the freezer, I'm covering the pan with its lid to help defrost the meat. When I made freezer meals for the postpartum season, I made 6 freezer pizzas from scratch, 3 cheese, and 3 with the seasoned hamburger. While I browned meat for the pizza, I threw in an extra pound of hamburger to set aside for a postpartum meal, and that's what we're using today. Once my beef has completely thawed, I'm adding in just over a pint of sauce to the pan. We prefer a more meaty sauce, so just add sauce to your preference. Once everything is mixed together, I'm adding some garlic powder, oregano, and salt. Here is my secret ingredient for my tomato sauces. I add just a pinch of clove. To make it easier to serve, I mix in the cooked noodles directly to the saucepan, then serve and top with cheese. Our final summer dinner from the garden is a garden veggie soup. I'm starting by chopping a variety of peppers and half an onion. Then I added those veggies to a pot with oil and salted the mixture to help the veggies soften. In the background, you'll see that we had a roast chicken for lunch, so I'll be picking off the rest of the meat for this soup. Before that, I'm adding a few freshly diced tomatoes to the pot. You can add any veggies you have on hand. Right now, we're swimming in varieties of peppers and tomatoes. I have a few okra that aren't mature enough to pick yet, but I would have really liked to add them to this soup if they were ready. I always have to save that juice from the roast chicken at the bottom of the pan. It is such a flavor booster and full of nutrients. I passed it through a strainer first to clear up the liquid. Then I add some homemade bone broth too. This is about 3 cups worth that we made together in my postpartum preparation video. If you'd appreciate more information about making bone broth yourself, I'll link that video in the corner. While I let all those flavors mingle, I started some rice on the stovetop to serve under the soup. This reminded me more of a gumbo than a soup. Either way, it was delicious. Thank you so much for watching. What are some of your summer dinner staples? Share them down below. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.